Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Rommel Geronimo. For those of you that don't know me, I consult with the autoimmune population through my website, geronimohealth.com. Today, we want to talk about the cytokine storm. And although this happens quite frequently in the autoimmune population, this is actually a hot topic now because it's this actual immune reaction that's killing patients with COVID-19. It's not the virus itself, but it's this overactive, unregulated immune response that's killing patients, okay? And so that's what we're gonna talk about today. We're gonna discuss the immune system a little bit. We're gonna discuss the cytokine storm, and then we're gonna discuss nutrition and lifestyle strategies that you can start today to survive this storm. All right. So understand that the immune system is very, very complex, okay? We're not gonna go over each and every one of these cells, but what I'll do is simplify it by going over or grouping these cells here on your left as your first responders, and then these cells here on your right as your secondary or specialist responders, okay? So when a virus enters your body, it will attach itself to a cell, and it has to go and hijack each and every one of our cells to replicate and multiply, okay? Understand that a virus is not a self-contained living organism. It needs to hijack our body. It needs to, hijack our own DNA to replicate itself. And what it will do is it will replicate and replicate and replicate a million times over until the virus or until our cells burst and releases all this viral DNA inside our body, okay? So it only takes one virus to create a million copies of itself floating inside us, okay? Now, typically in a healthy population, your first responders, which are these cells here, okay? Which looks like this cell, it looks like Pac-Man, okay? And what it does is it's constantly patrolling, it's constantly surveying our bloodstream and our tissues. And as soon as it finds a virus, it neutralizes it by gobbling it up, digests it, and destroys, the virus completely, okay? Now, in the asymptomatic population, those with COVID-19 or those with the SARS-CoV-2 virus who are completely asymptomatic, this is exactly what's going on. Their immune system is strong enough that their first responders are taking care of the threat and they don't even know that they have the virus, okay? If, however, these first responders are weak and they're not strong enough to contain the virus, they have to go into a second level type of mechanism, okay? And this diagram kind of simplifies this. Now, I got this diagram from one of my mentors. His name is Dr. Datis Karazian. He's taught me everything I need to know about the immune system and how the whole autoimmune process starts and how to modulate it. If you want to know more about him, he's at the KarazianInstitute.com, okay? But this is one of his slides, but it really simplifies everything. So your first responders are here, okay? And when it can't fully take care of the virus, it starts displaying parts of the virus on its surface, okay? So antigen is virus, okay? And it becomes what's called an antigen-presenting cell. So it's a cell with parts of its virus displayed on its surface, okay? This will then create cytokines, okay? And this is how these cytokines start. Cytokines are nothing more than chemical messages that the immune system uses to alert other immune cells, okay? So when these first responders, when their call for help is through cytokines, okay? These cytokines will then reach a T helper cell. And I always try to use a military analogy. I was in the Marine Corps, so this kind of makes it easy for people to understand. But these cytokines, your first responders, are gonna call for help to the base, right? In Marines, we've always learned that your most important weapon in the battlefield is your radio, because you can always call for help. It's not your rifle, it's not a weapon. It's your radio, because that's how you can call for help. And so that's what these cells are doing. They're calling for help, okay? The T helper cells will then now activate more Marines who are specific at fighting viruses. And these are what's called natural killer cells and cytotoxic T cells, okay? These are then aided by B cells, okay? Again, you kind of really don't need to know this. The only thing that you need to know about B cells is that they are the ones that make antibodies. They're not really engaged in the fight, but they help our Marines, our natural killer cells inside of toxic T cells, identify which cells have the viruses in them, okay? And they do that by tagging them with antibodies. And when a cell has antibodies, it makes it easier for these Marines to kill them, okay? Imagine, you know, this being a laser that identifies a target, and then the target can then be destroyed by these guys, okay? This is all being organized through different cytokines, okay? What you also have to understand is that cytokines are going to cause replication and multiplication of these cells, okay? Remember, there's millions and millions of viruses floating around in our bodies. We need to build a force strong enough to neutralize these viruses. And so cytokines will cause replication or division of these cells. And so you have multiplications of these, you know, eventually you have a fleet force, so to speak, which will then neutralize the virus, okay? Now, again, in a healthy immune system, this is all self-regulating, okay? In a healthy immune system, this whole process stops, and you know, you may develop some symptoms, you may develop a cough, you may develop a fever, but at the end of the day, you know, after a couple of days, you're fine, okay? And the regulatory T cell, which is the general that oversees the battle, will then tell your immune cells to stand down and to cease fire, okay? If they don't get this, you know, communication, or if they don't get this signal from this regulatory T cell, okay, Marines love to fight, okay? And they will constantly fight and fight and fight, even if they have to fight themselves, all right? And that's basically what's going on here. If you're not getting the signal to cease fire and to stand down because your regulatory T cells are weak, okay, then these immune cells are actually going to start attacking your own bodies, okay? And that's exactly what's going on with COVID-19. It's not the virus that's killing you. It's an overactivation of these cells that's killing you because they're not being controlled by the generals, okay? They've gone rogue, they've gone on their own, okay? And they're just doing what they love to do. They love to destroy things. But in this case, they're destroying your lungs, okay? So, oh, I lost control of my feed or my buttons here. Okay, so I'm not sure what's going on, but we lost control of the keyboard. All right, technical difficulties, always. So with cytokines, one thing that you have to understand is that cytokines will always produce oxidation, okay? And the best way to explain oxidation is an apple, okay? When an apple is half eaten, there we go. When an apple is half eaten, okay, within minutes, it'll start to turn brown, it'll start to turn soggy, and it basically starts to rot, okay? Well, when you have a cytokine storm going on in your lungs and you're producing oxidation, the last thing that you want is for your lungs to turn soggy, okay? Because that sogginess is basically your lungs filling up with fluids, okay? Eventually, you know, people are being put on ventilators, and we're finding out that ventilators really aren't the answers to rescuing people, because, you know, the article from Time magazine was saying that 80% of people were dying from being put on ventilators. So that's not the case, okay? So what do we need to do then to minimize the cytokine storm and to minimize this immune activation? Well, let's go back a little bit. Oh boy, this thing is frozen again. There you go. Okay, so going back to this, okay? In a healthy immune system, the first responders are strong and the virus is neutralized and the patient is completely asymptomatic, okay? When a patient starts to develop symptoms, that just means that they've activated their secondary response. Again, you may develop a fever, you may develop a cough, but generally, once your immune system takes care of that, that whole process stops and you're healthy and you recover again, okay? If your immune system cannot regulate itself because of weak, T-regulatory T cells, or if you have decreased antioxidants, then the cytokine storm results in severe oxidation and, in the lungs and ultimately death, okay? So how do we stop the cytokine storm? Well, first we need to fortify our borders and our cell walls, okay? And we can do this nutritionally, okay? These same nutrients will also decrease the antivirals, okay, or also improve antiviral activity. So if you recall from this slide here, okay, when the viral DNA injects into our own cells, it needs to replicate itself, okay? But there are certain nutrients that actually minimize this whole replication process from occurring, okay? And we'll talk about that a little bit. And we'll also talk about antioxidants, okay? We'll also talk about boosting your immune cells, specifically the regulatory T cells, which are the generals, again, that are controlling the fight, okay? We talked about that already. So sorry about that. We had to get caught up because my slides weren't going in order here. So anyways, now going back to the cell wall, okay, we need to build strong cell walls. And how do we do that, okay? Well, the cell wall, if you recall if you took any type of biology, you recall that it's a fatty layer, okay? This is the outside of a cell, this is the inside of a cell, and this is kind of a cross section of the fatty layer. There's fats on the outside and there's fats on the inside, okay? These fats come from your diet. And so if you're consuming bad fats, you're gonna have bad walls. You're gonna have porous walls. You're gonna have very thin walls. So you wanna consume the good fats. And these good fats are omega-3 fatty acids that you get in fish oils, that you get in coconut oil. And these same things are also have antiviral properties, okay? So we just talked about, viruses replicating inside the cell. You can minimize that replication process through these good fats, okay? Vitamin A is also one of those things that are crucial as an antiviral, okay? It's also crucial for building these strong walls, okay? So these are simple things that you can start doing today. You can start eating foods, and I'm not gonna go over which foods and have high doses of vitamin A and which foods have high doses of omega-3s. These things you can look up on your own, okay? Back to oxidation, okay? So when oxidation occurs in the lungs, you're creating what's called reactive oxygen species. These are what's called ROS. And what that simply means is that these species are missing an electron, okay? If you recall from chemistry, electrons are constantly spinning around an atom, and there has to be balanced pairs. There's always two, an even number to keep that number stable and to keep the electron stable, okay? The easiest way that I can explain this that might help you to understand is that your washing machine, okay? If your washing machine goes through its spin cycle and it's unbalanced, it starts to rumble, it starts to bounce all over the place, it's making all kinds of noises. It's very, very unstable, okay? Now, most washing machines obviously will stop, rebalance itself, and then spin again, and then everything's all good, okay? Well, that's exactly what's going on with this whole process. You need antioxidants to donate an electron to keep this pair balanced, okay? And this is, again, what's going on in the lungs, and this is why hundreds of patients who are hours away from dying are being saved by vitamin C. There are doctors out there saving people's lives, not with ventilators, but with vitamin C through an IV, okay? And again, the reason why is because you had this oxidative process that's going on in the lungs, and you need antioxidants to minimize this oxidation from occurring, okay? Now, this is not voodoo science. This is not crystals and feathers. This is some things that's basically proven time and time and time and again over peer-reviewed medical journals. And I really don't understand why it's not being pushed out there, why people aren't, why the government isn't telling us to take vitamin C, to take omega-3 fatty acids, to take vitamin A, okay? These are things that are all crucial for a well-regulated immune system, okay? All right, antioxidants. The major ones, again, I just talked about vitamin C, but glutathione is also a clear, it's the mother antioxidant that we have in our body, okay? I did a video that's on YouTube on glutathione and vitamin C a couple of years ago. That's also on my website if you want to look at that, but that explains the interaction between glutathione and vitamin C. But again, the only thing that you need to know is that when you have low, or when your levels are low in antioxidants, you're going to minimize your immune system, okay? You're going to decrease your immune system's ability to kind of self-regulate itself and to minimize that oxidative process. Now, here's the key thing. Conditions that deplete antioxidant levels in your body are cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, autoimmune diseases, obesity, and respiratory diseases. There's more, but these are the main ones, okay? Does anyone recognize this list? Okay, this is the same list that people with comorbidities are dying from when they have COVID or the SARS-CoV-2 virus, okay? People that have immunodeficiencies or immunocompromised, these are these people, okay? And it's because they have they have no antioxidants in their bodies to neutralize that oxidative reaction that's going on in the lungs, okay? So if you are these people, you need to get yourself on high doses of vitamin C, you need to get yourself, vitamin A and D and glutathione, okay? And you can simply, again, get that from your diet. If you need to, get it from supplements, if your diet is very minimal in those nutrients, okay? Oh, great. Okay, so the other things that we need to talk about, again, in order to minimize this cytokine storm, we need to have good leadership. We need to have good generals. Otherwise, these Marines just go rogue and they start destroying everything that they see. That's what Marines do, all right? So we need these generals to tell us, hey, stop, okay? These regulatory T cells are going to be key to minimizing this cytokine storm, okay? Well, these regulatory T cells are going to be weakened by stress, okay? And who isn't stressed right now, okay? Lack of sleep will also decrease activity of these regulatory T cells, okay? So people that are, sleeping late because they really have nothing to do the next day, or their circadian rhythm, which, is their daily routine is now, it's completely off, that's going to weaken the immune system, okay? One of the things that you get with sleep is melatonin, okay? Melatonin is a powerful immunomodulator, meaning that it really helps with your regulatory T cell functions. But you only get melatonin when you're sleeping, okay? And those of you that are constantly waking up in the middle of the night, maybe between the hours of 2 and 4 a.m., you are minimizing your melatonin secretion. So you've got to be able to sleep. Get off your phones, get off your TVs, get off of anything that's going to, have any light exposure, because that light exposure will cause you to, it hits what's in the area of your brain called the pineal gland, which decreases or turns off your melatonin production. So get off of that, okay? Blood sugar is another key factor that will minimize, or that has been shown to decrease regulatory T cell function, okay? Those of you with high blood, with a high blood sugar diet, right? Those of you that eat juice or drink sodas, or, you have all kinds of sugary foods in your diet, which typically everybody's eating because it's a comfort food, you're actually doing your immune system a disservice, okay? So a lot of these things, right now, even going back to, lack of exercise, a poor diet, a diet that's rich in, gluten and dairy and corn, soy, and eggs. Those are the five most inflammatory foods. Okay, let me go over them again. Gluten, dairy, corn, soy, and eggs. For most people, it causes inflammation. And when it causes inflammation, it will decrease this regulatory T cell function, okay? But that's the majority of the foods that we're eating right now. Lack of exercise. Most people aren't doing any exercises right now, okay? Environmental toxins in the air, water, and the food. These are things that we're constantly consuming, primarily more in the food right now because we're eating a lot of junk food. You know, people are eating, you know, bad fats. People are eating genetically modified foods, processed foods. These are things that have been sprayed with pesticides, herbicides, steroids, antibiotics. These are things that aren't really setting us up for any type of health, okay? But all these different factors here, this is what we're doing right now, okay? And this is what needs to stop if you want to build a strong immune system, okay? So what do you need to do? Well, we do the opposite. Boosting the regulatory T cells means that you're maintaining sleep and you're maintaining that circadian rhythm. You need that melatonin at night to have a strong immune system, okay? You need to control your blood sugar. For some people, some of you, controlling blood sugar means that you're eating every, you know, small, frequent, healthy meals every 2 to 3 hours. For some of you, it requires intermittent fasting. And then for some of you, it requires a mild ketogenic type of a diet. There's no blanket statement that says, you know, what's going to be good for you, but you kind of have to figure out where you are in that spectrum, okay? Exercise. Exercise produces what's called nitric oxide synthase, and that's produced within the first 12 to 15 minutes of a high intensity interval training type of exercise, okay? So a burst type of exercise. So you only need 12 to 15 minutes to really have an impact on your immune system, okay? Anything beyond that is more for cardiovascular fitness and more for weight loss, okay? But that 12 to 15 minutes is something that you can do. Now, you don't need to be in a gym. You can do this in your living room. You can do this in your patio. You can do this in your garage. And all it takes is a kind of a burst exercise where, okay, if you're new to exercise, maybe you're only doing it for 15 to 20 seconds. But let's say you do, you know, jumping jacks, or you're running in place, or you're doing air squats, or you're doing burpees. You know, if you're a little bit more advanced, maybe you can go a full minute, and then you allow yourself to recover for, you know, 1 to 2 minutes, depending on your exercise capacity. You know, if you're just getting started, again, start off with 15 to 20 seconds, allow yourself to recover for a minute, and then again, go another cycle of 15 to 20 seconds, allow yourself to recover. Do that for 12 to 15 minutes, and that's going to boost your nitric oxide synthase, not to mention what's called BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotropic factors, which is going to be great for your brain. So those of you with anxiety and depression, this type of exercise is what's going to be crucial for brain health, okay? Now, laughter and happiness is also, you know, kind of crucial for brain health as well. But when your brain is healthy, your immune system is going to be healthy, okay? Because when you're happy and when you have laughter and when you feel loved, your brain produces oxytocin and your brain produces serotonin and dopamine. These are all chemicals that have been shown to activate these regulatory T cells, okay? So again, it's not voodoo science. This is modern science. This is what it's telling us, okay? Being happy, expressing your emotions in a positive way, having a positive impact in people, giving people hugs, telling them that you love them. These are all things that will boost the immune system, okay? And nutritionally, vitamin D and glutathione have also been shown to minimize the anti-inflammatory effects and to boost that suppressive mechanism of the immune system when it needs to be boosted or when it needs to be suppressed. Excuse me. Okay. So again, I want to introduce a topic that most of you may not be familiar with, and this is your microbiome, okay? The microbiome is the gut bacteria that's housed in your gastrointestinal tract, okay? There's actually more microorganisms there. There's 10 times more microorganisms in there, including viruses, than we have cells in our bodies, okay? So there's trillions and trillions of these microorganisms. These microorganisms have 100 times more DNA than we have in our own DNA, in our own cells, okay? So when you really think about it, we're more virus, we're more bacteria, we're more microorganisms than we are human cells, okay? But it's a balance of the immune system, it's a balance of these viruses, it's a balance of these bacteria that really keep us alive, okay? So in order to keep your microbiome healthy, you need to feed it. And the way that you feed it is through a variety of vegetables and fruits, okay? The worst thing that you can do with your microbiome is to not eat any vegetables at all and to keep eating the same things day in and day out, okay? That will lead to a dysregulated microbiome, that will lead to an unbalanced microbiome, and it leads to poor health, okay? So in order to get a healthy microbiome, you need to increase your plant intake, and you need to make sure that you're eating things that typically you don't eat on a daily basis. And I'm talking about vegetables. So things that you're, you know, next time you're at the grocery stores, pick up something that you've never eaten before, some exotic vegetable, and eat that, okay? Because that's really what's gonna help your microbiome. That's what creates diversity, okay? All right, so that microbiome, again, is related to this gut-brain axis, okay? There's also a gut immune axis. There's also a gut hormonal axis. There's an immune hormonal reaxis or axis. These are all things that when you look at the body as a system, you'll begin to understand, okay? You need to understand that everything's connected. So again, when the gut is healthy, that will lead to a healthy brain. So again, if you have anxiety, if you have depression, okay, you're not producing these feel-good neurotransmitters. You're not producing the inhibitory neurotransmitters. And that's going to lead to poor health, okay? So again, fix your gut, where 80% of your immune system is housed, you fix your brain, and you're healthy, all right? Great, all right. So labs that you can do. So if you're interested in doing labs and finding out how, you know, how healthy your immune system is, you can do a CBC, which is a complete blood count, where you're looking at your white blood cells, okay? Your white blood cells, you're gonna look at kind of like your first responders, and then you're also gonna look at your lymphocytes, okay? Now, it's not, the lymphocytes isn't broken down any further, but if you wanna break them down into those Marines, those natural killer cells and cytotoxic T cells, then you run what's called a T and B lymphocyte panel, okay? Now, you can get this done through your doctors. If you can't get it done, give my office a call. I'll be happy to help you with that. You can get them done through LabCorp, okay? My email address is Rommel, so it's ROMMEL at geronimohealth.com, or you can just log on to my website here and get a hold of me that way as well, all right? So in summary, okay, what did we talk about? So this is the cytokine storm, okay? In a healthy immune system, the cytokine storm is self-regulating, and regardless of whether it's COVID or the SARS-CoV-2 virus, whether it's the influenza virus, whether it's an autoimmune issue, whatever virus that it does, this should stop, okay? You should have the signal to stop this whole process through a strong regulatory T cell, okay? And these regulatory T cells are going to be strengthened by vitamin D, sunshine vitamin, okay? You get this from being outside. You can also get it from food. And again, you can look that up on your own. Glutathione, okay? Having a strong microbiome. We just talked about that. NOS is nitric oxide synthase, which is what you get from burst type of exercises or high intensity interval training exercises. And then happy neurotransmitters, okay? When you're building social relationships, when you get an I love you or a hug from, you know, a loved one, these are all things that will help to boost your immune system, okay? A healthy immune system will also have lots of antioxidants to minimize the oxidation that's occurring in the cytokine storm, okay? Remember, the cytokine storm always produces oxidation. If you don't have enough antioxidants to minimize the oxidation, then you're just gonna you're just going to rot away. Okay. If it's occurring in the lungs, it's going to result in fluids in the lungs and respiratory distress and ultimately death. Okay. So things that you can do to kind of even prevent this whole cytokine storm from happening and to keep your, your macrophages or your first line defenses healthy, make sure that you're getting good fats in your diet, because these omega-3 fatty acids, again, you get from fish oil and coconut oil, vitamin A, these are antiviral properties, and these are things that will fortify your what's called your phospholipid bilayer, which is the fatty layer that surrounds every cell in your body. Okay, so hopefully you got something out of that. These are the nutrients again: vitamin A, C, and D, glutathione. Now, one thing that you need to understand is vitamin C and vitamin B. These are water-soluble vitamins. Okay, so there's very, very little risks of toxicity, reaching toxicity levels in your bodies. Okay, so when you need to dose up vitamin D, or I'm sorry, vitamin C, do so at bowel tolerance, meaning that you take enough that you actually produce loose stools, and then you take one less. So what this translates to is, let's say you take one capsule of vitamin C, and you add another capsule the next time you take a dose, and another capsule until you actually start to have loose stools. Okay, so let's say that took 5 capsules. Well, then your ideal dose would be 4, because then you have enough vitamin C in you, but you don't have enough to cause loose stools. If you're in a chronic flare-up, whether it's from the flu or whether it's from COVID or whether it's from an autoimmune issue, you take enough every 2 to 3 hours, okay, to really build up your antioxidant levels. And again, you're not going to overdose on this because it's a water-soluble vitamin, okay? Vitamins A and D, I need to be a little bit more careful with, because these are fat-soluble vitamins. Really, it's going to take mega doses to, produce toxicity. But when I'm speaking in general overall terms for people out there, I would have, your vitamin A and D levels looked at first in the lab, find out where your levels are, and then supplement accordingly. Okay. Glutathione, again, you can get these from foods, but if you need to supplement with glutathione, I would recommend doing that. Now, glutathione is one of those supplements that you pay for what you get for, okay? Because glutathione is not readily absorbed in the gut, and cheap forms of glutathione are a waste of money, okay? So you really have to look at glutathione levels, the really good brands. And again, if you want to email me, if you want ask me for my recommendations, I'm happy to do that. But you've got to get a good glutathione brand, okay? And then omega-3 fatty acids. Those are the things that are going to help fortify your cell walls and minimize that viral activity from replicating itself. All right? Again, these are things that I think people should know about. These are things that I think the government should be pushing, because these are things that have been studied over and over and over for decades. We know about the properties of these vitamins. We know about the benefits of these vitamins. And it's simply, boosting the immune system. And if we can do that, hopefully you can understand now that it's really not the virus that's killing us. It is a dysregulated immune system. Okay? So that's all I have. Stay healthy.